We're going to move on now to item 2, which is discussion of commitments to area residents and the county made by the City of Gulf Breeze regarding Tiger Point Golf Course conditional use. I asked this item to be put on the agenda. First, I think it would be worthwhile to go back over a little bit of the history surrounding Tiger Point Golf Course, the recent history. We've got a couple of commissioners that weren't on when that decision was made back in 2012. Back in 2012, the city purchased Tiger Point Golf Course, and as part of that, the city asked for a conditional use to expand the operations of the sewer treatment facility that is located adjacent to the west course in Santa Rosa Shores area of Tiger Point. The residents were adamantly opposed to that condition, the expansion of the conditional use. The city has property on Bergen Road where they had planned to construct a new sewer treatment plant once capacity levels dictated that that plant be constructed. It was going to cost about $20 million, if memory serves me correct, about $600,000 a year in additional operating expenses to build that new facility down the highway on Bergen Road. So the city had an opportunity to expand their capacity on site at the existing facility in Santa Rosa Shores, Tiger Point. That option was about $10 million and would cut those additional operating expenses, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So the city would realize a savings of about $10 million by not having to build a new facility, in addition to several $100,000 a year in operating expenses. The residents, again, were opposed to any expansion of that sewer treatment facility, which is located right in the middle of a heavily developed, densely populated area of South Santa Rosa County. So the city asked for an expansion of that conditional use. The city worked with the residents down there to come up with a plan that would meet the needs of the residents, also allowing the city to realize, and SSRUS, to realize the cost savings of expanding on site rather than building a new facility down on Bergen Road. So at our December 2012 rezoning special meeting, I read into the record a list of 14 or 15 commitments that the city made in exchange for the granting of that conditional use. I won't read them all today. You can watch the meeting online, about 9 minutes, rather short, this section of the meeting anyway. But just a few of the items that the city committed to doing included lowering the footprint of the conditional use to somewhat less than 15 acres, heavily landscaping the out-of-play areas, working with a representative of the association on plans for the landscaping improvement. Also said we are absolutely committed to restoring the back 9 on the west course and to rebuilding the front 9 holes on the west as well. We'll need to design these improvements and make a significant commitment of funds to make this happen. Unless we experience another catastrophe like Ivan or an oil spill resulting in a crash of the golf market, we will have this project completed in 2 to 3 years. We will repair, replace existing fencing, and will work with the Homeowners Association relative plans for new fencing. Management group that operates the golf course will be directed to continue their roundtable meetings with the various owner groups to include Santa Rosa Shores in this process. They committed to landscaping projects, including $200,000 in funding for Santa Rosa Shores homeowners to use for neighborhood improvements. I said that funds are approved and available. They did not have any plans to sell off the driving range, but did commit to giving Paul Stagner, one of the adjacent property owners there, a business owner, first right of refusal on the property. These were read into the record at that rezoning meeting and agreed to by the city manager for Gulf Breeze who said, you know, in no uncertain terms, we will do every one of these things that night. He said the homeowners are the customer, the HOAs are the customers, and in order to be successful, we have to have happy customers. Well, that was 2.5 years ago. Little progress has been made. Many of these items have not been addressed at all. The West Course had 9 holes open and being played when the city took over. Those 9 holes have now been closed completely, so there are no holes open on the West Course. And quite frankly, we're at a point now where we have to recognize that those commitments that the city made back in 2012 to the county and to the residents of the area have not been met. I've had a couple of meetings with the city manager, one with the mayor. I wanted to bring the board up to speed on this issue as it stands to affect thousands of residents in Santa Rosa County. People in Tiger Point, Santa Rosa Shores, that area, bought homes, built homes, and stayed in homes based on the promise that we would have the West Course reopened, and that has not happened. The city has not met its commitments, again, to the residents or the county. Now the city seems to be moving in a direction that could lead to the sale of at least a portion of the West Course, the driving range, and possibly permanently closing the West Course. Given the speed with which things have been moving along and the great concerns that the residents and I have, I wanted to bring this to the board to open up the discussion and come up with a way forward. So that's why this item was on the agenda today. Again, there were commitments made in exchange for that conditional use that was granted. Those commitments have not been lived up to, and we need to figure out a way forward now. Any questions, comments from members of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Cole.
can we hear from somebody on the Gulf Breeze side as to why we're not seeing the commitments being fulfilled?
We will, and we'll also listen to the residents from Santa Rosa Shores and Tiger Point. Mr. Andrews, just to be clear, based on your reading and interpretation of everything, has the city met its obligations pursuant to that conditional use application and the conditions that were put on it?
At this point, my understanding is that those conditions have not been met.
Thank you. Mr. Eddy, do you want to address anything on behalf of the city?
Since I'm the one that made the commitment, but any person in my position will tell you that the commitments we make are on behalf of our board, our city council, and we made the decision in 2012 to buy the golf course, and we didn't feel like there was much choice. We did that for utility reasons, and we did that to stabilize property value in the area, which we think that happened. Had the city, when we were first approached about buying the golf course, we were not interested. We're not in the golf business, we're in the utility business. Certainly it made more sense, and it makes more sense for the residents for somebody to be operating the golf course so that a utility can be operated on that southwest corner and not on Bergen Road. It doesn't make more sense for the city. It makes more sense for the residents. It makes more sense for the utility customers. So we refused to buy the golf course on a number of occasions, a number of meetings with the current owners at that time. And then finally the threat was made, well, if you don't buy it, we're going to let it go into receivership and that'll be that. And the city council said, we will buy the utility. We didn't have the opportunity to do all the due diligence that's necessary to be able to know exactly what the golf course is worth and know exactly what kind of repairs are going to be necessary before we enter into that transaction. So we went ahead anyhow. And we wanted to test the waters with you to make sure that we could get a conditional use permit to expand We originally asked for, I think, 40 acres, and we reduced it to 15 at your request. And we wanted to make sure that a conditional use was possible to expand the treatment plant, not to save the city money, but to save our ratepayers money. Some of the things that we want to do is to make central wastewater treatment more attractive, so there's fewer septic tanks on the south end, so that developers can connect to wastewater facilities for a reasonable price to keep development going. So not doing the plant at Bergen Road, which was also opposed, and doing the plant at Tiger Point on the west course made good fiscal sense, good business sense. And that's what we decided to do. And it also made good business sense, a gut reaction. We didn't have time to do the appropriate due diligence, was to rebuild the west course. And that's why we made that commitment. The city council was behind it. We're going to rebuild the west course. You know, as I read those 15 commitments, those were all reasonable things. We're not going to build a tower on the course. We're going to immediately improve the fence lines. We did that. A number of things we didn't know we were going to have to do, like kill termites in the clubhouse. We did that, and we rebuilt the property around the facility around the clubhouse. So as things get better, we hired a consultant. First we hired a designer to design the west course. And we paid a lot of money for a design to fulfill that commitment. The city council said at that point, well, you're continuing to lose money at the east course. Does it really make a lot of sense to expand on the west course after they had had the opportunity to see a couple of budgets after December of 2012? Does it make sense are we going to make that worse, or are we going to make it better by rebuilding the west course? Just Monday, June 15th, we had a presentation by a consultant that said, essentially, you're going to make it worse. You're going to make it worse for the ratepayers. Not for the city, but for the ratepayers. So what should we do, Mr. Consultant? Well, you make the east course the best experience you can make it. You focus your attention on the east course. It needs a lot of improvement. It's played at about 59% of capacity. So once you get the east course to the absolute best course it can be, you improve the experience for the people that are plunking down money for a membership or for a daily play, and you get that statistic of 59% of capacity up to a higher number, then you reevaluate building the west course. That's the problem in running a utility in today's environment, running a golf course in today's environment. We made the commitment to the county commission in December of 2012, essentially with a gun to our heads. We had to make a decision at that point. We said we are going to build the west course. That was a smart thing to do right then. It's not necessarily a smart thing to use ratepayer money to do right now. And we're moving in that direction by making the east course the best it can be, get the money coming in and money going out stabilized, and then at the point where it makes sense, we'll take ratepayer money and put it into the west course to make it the best it can be. But to go out there and do less of a job on both sides and lose more of their money, we just have to reevaluate that.
Listening to what you just said, you said wait and make a decision and then rebuild the west course. So at this point, there are no plans to sell off any portion of the west course?
No, sir.
So,
I mean, it's a little bit like talking to somebody that teaches your kids in school. If my kid is failing at reading, I've got a million ideas of how to improve that. We've got a million ideas of how to improve the ratepayer outgo and the money coming in from golfers. The idea of a smaller golf course on the west than used to be there and having some lots to sell has been thrown out there, but it's not something the city council is formally considering.
because in my meeting with you, I didn't come away from that meeting, from either of those meetings, with any hope whatsoever that the city had any intention of rebuilding the west course.
Well, you know, it's just as I stated. We need to focus on the East Course. We need to make the East Course as good an experience as it can be. Increased costs on the increased the charge to play on the East Course to the point where people are lining up to play over there, and then we've got the option of building the West Course.
And that option would be in place if it wasn't sold off, I understand that. But my understanding was that was on the table as well, selling the West Course.
Well, go ahead.
With regard to the other commitments that the city made, where do you stand on those?
Well, I think about 11 out of 15 we are consistent with. We've improved the fence lines. We haven't built a tower on the property. We haven't put any commercial uses on the property. Now, our big mistake, as you stated, was to, in the design process, we're paying a guy out of Jacksonville, Robert Walker, to design the West Course. And everything is going along well. There's one part of the city that's evaluating the budgets, the money coming in and money going out, and another part of the city that's trying to get the West Course built. And once those two started to communicate with each other, and that's my fault, the city council asked the question, well, why do we want to spend more money and build the West Course when we're losing money on the East? And we had just killed the West Course. Because we were going to build the West Course during that growing season. That was a mistake. We should have left the West Course at least open for people to walk and to hit a few balls around, but timing was not in our favor.
So are there any plans right now to reopen those 9 holes on the West Course?
No, sir, there are not plans to reopen the 9 holes. The conditions are not such that we could do that for a small amount of money.
With regard to the consultant that you had that analyzed operations out there, was the consultant informed that the city had made a commitment that it would reopen the 18 holes on the West Course?
You know, their mission was not to help us meet our conditional use permit. Their mission was to tell us about golf and, you know, evaluate what we should do with ratepayer money on the East Course and what we should do next with the West Course.
When they were doing their financial projections, were the savings that are to be realized from not having to build and locate a new plant on Bergen Road and the associated annual operating expenses in the hundreds of thousands of dollars taken into consideration by the consultant?
No. And as I've indicated, we talked about at the meeting, those savings don't exist until we have the critical mass of customers that require the additional $1.5 million plant, 1.5 million gallon per day plant to be built. And we're not having to spend the payroll costs. That's when the savings exist. The savings are not in the bank somewhere that we can draw upon. We haven't taken ratepayer money in advance of payroll costs or in advance of building the $20 million plan at Bergen Road or $18 to $20 million plan at Bergen Road. So we have that money, and now that we're able to go to Tiger Point, we're only spending $8 or $9 million. So now we have this it doesn't exist. It won't exist until the mid part of the next decade.
So when do you anticipate building that, or expanding the current plant or building the new one?
In 2020, 2021, what the DEP requires is for utilities, and I know that I'm going to be quoted again, so I don't want to misspeak. Utilities have to have their plant under design, I think, Roger, 5 years before you need it. And you have to have permits for construction 3 years before you're going to need it. And in the boom and bust kind of economy that we've seen since 2008, you know, you draw a straight line and you think capacity analysis shows you that you're going to need the plant 2015, well, 2018, 2020, because things slow down. Then things speed back up. You have to flatten the line out again and get ready to build the plant. That's the situation we're in. We don't want to build at Bergen Road unless we have to. We want to keep wastewater attractive to folks and keep the rates low. So I can't tell you exactly when we're going to need the plant, but it's going to be a function of the capacity that's being used at Tiger Point right now and how fast growth is occurring, but it doesn't look like it's going to be until 2021 or 2022.
Okay, so that would be, you know, 5, 6, 7 years from now.
Yes, sir.
Down the road. And at that point, you would realize a $10, $11, $12 million savings in capital outlay.
Well, at that point, what we'll realize is we won't have to bill the customers for an $18 million plant at Bergen Road. We'll be able to bill the customers for a $8, $9 million plant and $15 at Tiger Point. But there won't be a stack of $8 million that now we can move over to the golf course unless we start billing as if we spent 20 or 18 at Bergen Road. I'm not able to really get that point well articulated, but, you know, when we
I
permit a
think
new...
you're articulating it fine, it's just that we made these commitments and we're not going to follow through on them. We're going to take that money and we're going to build our $8 million expansion at Tiger Point. We're going to save the $20 million at Bergen, and that $12 million is going to disappear.
Well, we don't have it. It doesn't...
I understand that.
It can't disappear if it doesn't exist.
I understand that. It's ratepayer money. It's ratepayer money that you will bank in the future.
Only if we were to increase the bills to pay for an $18 million plant. I guess that's the point I was trying to get across is, I suppose now what we could do is we could say, let's go ahead and start billing for the $18 million plant. I know there are other utilities that do that. Our plant is going to cost us $18 million. Let's go ahead and increase rates to pay the debt service on $18 million. And then let's just start putting the difference in rates. We'll commit to that being spent on the West Course. We haven't done that. I think the ratepayers, there wouldn't be a seat in this room if we did that.
Well, and do you have an estimate for what it would cost to rebuild the West Course? What was the estimate when you had it you had it designed?
$3.5 or $4 million.
So $3.5 million versus 10. I mean, 10 is
Yeah.
roughly your savings. So
Right.
there's still a net $6.5
You
million.
know, I know we're
in
going to be
savings
writing
there.
these things down in the future, but it was about 18 to 20 at Bergen, and it's about 8 to 10 at Tiger Point.
So
and
say a
15
$10 million
Yes, sir.
savings. And in exchange for that, the city committed to spending $3.5 million on refurbishing the West Course.
And I think one of the things that I said in the transcript was that the folks that owned Meadowbrook before us, or Meadowbrook, the folks that owned the golf course before us, said that it was a break-even proposition. The business was about a break-even business. Well, it isn't.
And you mentioned when you first started speaking that the city bought this as a utility decision.
Yes, sir.
Now it seems it's more of a for-profit decision. You're looking at the golf course from a profit standpoint now, notwithstanding the fact that there were commitments made to the county and to the residents down in the area.
I wouldn't put it in that context, but,
Right.
you know, the way we look at everything we do, from the water side at Fairpoint Regional Utilities, or the gas system, putting a gas line out to Pensacola Beach, or expanding a wastewater treatment facility, is that we're taking their money and we're trying to do the best we can for the environment, for DEP regulations, for the regulations that, the things that the standards you want us to hold to. It's never for profit. It's for making the best efficient and effective use of ratepayer dollars to build infrastructure. And the golf course ends up being part of that infrastructure when it ends up being, as Holly Navarre bought Hidden Creek, as other utilities have invested in golf courses for a dual purpose. Our decision, our position right now is that it doesn't make sense to spend $3.5 million of ratepayer money to lose more money on the West Course. Not at this time.
And I understand that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is it does make sense to spend $3.5 million of ratepayer money to save $10 million 5 years from now.
Well, I think we'll be in a situation, well, I don't know, I don't want to start a self-fulfilling prophecy here, but, you know, I think you would want us to be the most efficient and effective minister of public money. And we will have to have discussions with the county staff at some point and with you to say, here's what the costs are at Bergen. We have other property that we own on 98 and other places around where a treatment plant could go. And what do you want us to do? What should we do as a government going forward, being us and you together?
Okay. Any of the other commissioners have any questions for Mr. Eddy? Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Buzz, we've worked together a long time, and I feel pretty sure that, you know, with Gulf Breeze and the expertise you bring to the table and Commissioner Lyncher brings to the table, we can work through this. But, you know, when you come in and say that you didn't have time to do due diligence, but yet made some pretty strong statements like Gulf Breeze is absolutely committed to restoring the back nine. You know, I think our feeling as a board would have been a little more comfortable at the time if you'd have said, look, you know, these are the things we would like to do because we haven't had time to do due diligence. We would like to do these, but we can't commit to them. But you know, several years ago when I'm reading absolutely committed or you know, doing a better job, you know, just different comments that were made in a very positive manner that, you know, got this board to come on board with, you know, with the utility and the citizens and the neighbors down there to come on board with the utility. It makes it pretty hard to want to back up now, and I think everybody's cognizant of the economy and perhaps allowing more leeway in restoring that west course. But I'm like Commissioner Lynchard. What I've heard, and you know, of course, the rumor mill and the media is always 100% correct, is that, you know, there's a big for sale sign stuck on that west side. So, you know, hearing what you had to say today, you know, makes me a little more comfortable. But I really like to know, you know, when we can project these things and when these citizens can see the improvements. And quite frankly, if it's not done through the county attorney or Commissioner Lynchard, what course do we have in action in the future? I mean, to do anything. I really don't see you know, ability we have of making them you know, that commitment.
There is a procedure for governmental conflict resolution that this board could initiate, and that would require city manager, county administrator, and other county staff, elected officials as needed, to sit down, try to work out a resolution to this conflict. Absent any resolution at that meeting, then there would be a joint public meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and the City Council of Gulf Breeze, again, in an attempt to work out the potential conflict. Because at this point, I believe the city is not in compliance with the conditional use grant. Mr. Andrews, you want to expand on that?
Yes, sir. There is a specific statutory procedure, the Florida Governmental Conflict Resolution Act. It would require this board to pass a resolution that recognizes there is a conflict, that identifies the people that would be responsible for meeting initially at essentially a staff level to see if they could resolve that conflict. There has to be a letter sent to the administrator of the other government in conflict. That has to be sent within 5 days. The staff level meetings within 30 days. If it's resolved at a staff level, or if there's a progression in regard to a resolution, there can be additional meetings. If it's essentially an impasse, there would be the joint governmental meeting. All of these are sunshine meetings. If it is not resolved at the joint public meeting, there is a mediation procedure that's mandated, and if that's not resolved, then it goes back to legal remedies that would be available to the various governments. So this is it is designed specifically for citing of unpopular land uses and for permitting processes between that are likely to give rise to issues between the various governmental entities. So,
Commissioner J.R. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification, there were 15 items. It was mentioned that 4 of them had not been met. Obviously, number 6 is one of them. What are the other 3 items that have not been met?
I think we could probably have a representative from UPA or Santa Rosa Shores that could address each of those items, and whether or not, in their opinion, those items have been met satisfactorily. I think you'll have a difference of opinion on some of the things. Some of them are subjective, landscaping, things of that nature. So it's going to be hard to put a bright line test on there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to speak, Don? Come on up.
Don Richards, 1129 Park Lane, Gulf Breeze. In the city's opinion, they may well think that they have met 11 of the 15. There is a lot of activity that has gone on. When they first came in, they did clean up the fence lines. They did start taking care of some of the moats that had grown over, water hazards that were there that had grown over, and activities like that. But there are numerous commitments, and out of the 15, I can go through and specify the ones, but for the 100+ people that live right on the West Course, having seen that front 9 killed off in November, December of this past year, that was devastating, because just like on the radio this morning, the city manager spoke and said that, you know, they didn't want to see the course go into disrepair was one of the reasons that they bought the course. Well, let me tell you what, if I'm one of the residents living on the West Course right now, I'm telling you, it's in one hell of a lot different state now, worse state, than it was 6 months ago or 8 months ago, because they were getting ready to, and all of the commitments up to that time was, we're getting ready to restore this back course, this West Course. And all of a sudden in January that stopped. And there was the dead taking place. And now it's a weed infestation. And thank goodness they continue to mow it once a month or so, but that still hasn't restored it to what it was before, even before they bought the course. And to me, it's simply a thing of ethics. They got their conditional use based on these 15 commitments, and some of these people and many others telling us, go ahead and move forward with this. This is a good thing for our community. And now, that's not what they're doing. They've changed their commitment, and they still have dollars down the road that they will save, and that is what's critical, not only for SSRUS and all of us as ratepayers from the south end that use that, but it is also critical for those people immediately on the course. And yes, they were losing a lot of money, and they still are losing a lot of money. But as the consultants pointed out, it's poor management. When your salary structure is over by 36% of what it's supposed to be as a budget, there's an issue. When there's expenses that are running 30, 40, 50% higher than what they should be running, there's an issue. They're taking that. They're addressing that now. So that's going to start to change the structure of their cost involved. And that's absolutely the next step that needs to take place. But to tell these people that it's going to be 3 to 5 years before they even think about what they're going to do out their backyard or their back window, that's a crying shame. That's just a cardinal sin. We can't let that happen. And if they don't want to meet to the commitments, then we should just back up on the conditional use and let them make a decision, do they want to go to Bergen Road or someplace else. But that's just not right to the citizens that are abutting Tiger Point Golf Club.
Thank you. Commissioner Rob Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the folks coming here today. This did predate my coming onto the board. And I know that the city of Gulf Breeze has a fiduciary responsibility to their ratepayers and to their citizens, but this board does to the citizens of Santa Rosa County as well. And it looks like what started out in the spirit of cooperation, now we've kind of had trust erode a bit. To me, it seems like there are two separate things at issue here. One is the merit of the conditional use, and is that conditional use in the best interest of Santa Rosa County? Having the 15-acre conditional use, I do believe, is in the best interest of Santa Rosa County. Adding an additional plant at the Bergren location, that would be something I would not be in support of at this time. That'd be tough for me to get past. The other issue at stake here is that integrity issue. You know, I see that Representative Broxson is here this morning, and I know from my dealings with Vice Chairman Lynchard that these are two individuals that they're men of their word. Integrity is very important to them. Trust is very important to them. I wasn't in the meetings that they were in, but this is what resulted from those meetings are these points that were agreed upon. Now, the golf business is one of the few things I know a little bit about, and I'm actually, I can support I can understand why the city would not want to open up another golf course. Just because you have 2 golf courses doesn't mean you automatically have twice the number of players. It would be very difficult to be successful. What I'm still waiting to hear from the city is, if you're going to take the rebuilding of the golf course option off the table, what are you going to provide in exchange for that? Right now, all we've heard is what is going to be taken away. I've yet to hear what would be provided in its stead. And Buzz mentioned that there are plenty of people coming forth with all kinds of ideas. This had a 2 to 3 year shelf life. Using the language as Commissioner Cole had said, there was some absolutes in here, like number 6, absolutely committed. You have some of them here, do a better job. Well, that might not be as concrete the language, but you do have other ones, will repair and replace, will be heavily landscaped. There were certain things that were absolutes that were provided here. And if you're going to, because of the financial reasons that you've articulated, that I agree with, move away from building a West Golf Course, then what is the $3.5 to $4 million commitment that you're going to put in place of that would retain the property values that is obviously going to be of utmost importance to these folks? What is the highest and best use of that property? If it's not a golf course because it'll be financially unviable, which I would agree with, then are we looking at a practice facility, something that would be more beneficial for kids and families to use? Are we looking at some type of multi-use facility that could help relieve some of the pressure at Tiger Point Park? Are we looking at multi-use paths and bike trails and exercise options? Are we looking at adding additional amenities that other facilities don't have that would provide you with a competitive advantage over those other facilities, like tennis or what have you? So I would encourage you, since December of this year would be the 3-year mark that originally you said the construction would be completed, that now that that evaluation is done, come back to the board and say, this is what the plan is. Because right now, that's what I'm waiting to hear. And maybe if that plan is put forward with the support and involvement of the folks from Santa Rosa Shores, with a shortened timeline, not another 2 to 3 years will decide. That's the other thing I heard this morning that troubled me is we're evaluating now, we're going to get the East Golf Course to where it can be the best golf course it can be. I agree with that, but it's the other side of that is, and then we'll get around to what we're doing on the West Golf Course at some point in the future. Just if you could get a shortened timeline, since I feel like the board that preceded me was very generous in allowing you a 3-year timeline, that would help satisfy things in my mind. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Williamson. Come on up, Jim. Let me get your name for the record, please.
Joe McPherson. I come here to address this issue, just to give you a background. I'm a past president of United Peninsula Association, going back to the 1990s, 2000. But I want to give a little history. I've come before this board before, dealings with the city of Gulf Breeze, with UPA, and trying to get funds, enter into a joint powers agreement one time with the board, county commissioners, and I sat right next to where our Representative Broxton's sitting with Mr. Buzz Eddy. And Buzz, I have the greatest respect for Buzz Eddy. I think he's a true man. He's a man of his word. But he is what he said he is. He is the spokesman for the city council of Gulf Breeze. That's where I get scared. You're talking about having a joint agreement with them, or joint meeting with them. That's proper. I think that is the correct thing to do. It should happen and work this out. But I want to give a little history, not to prepare you, to sway you. But anyway, I asked Buzz, I said, we here vying for the same money for a joint powers agreement. I want to put a signal in at Soundside Drive and Highway 98. At that time in the 90s, we'd had several accidents where 3 people had been killed. And he says, no, we're vying for different monies from the state. Well, they got a joint powers agreement with the state for some funds for 98, and they put in their light downtown in Glendora. They rechanged the intersection downtown, and wound up getting a little bit more money from the state and got put in more lights. Made it a different setup than originally they had planned. But that was a long time ago. That was in the past. So I take what Buzz says, and he speaks for the city of Gulf Breeze. The city of Gulf Breeze entered into something here with Tiger Point. And I attended the meeting. Most of you were at that meeting, and Buzz did a great job. He stood before all of us. There's many of us there from Santa Rosa. There's a lot of people there from Tiger Point and all the adjacent 6 homeowner associations that are adjacent part of Tiger Point, and the 20 homeowners associations around there. There's a large group of people at that meeting. And I will tell you, from just milling around the crowd, most of the people were reluctant to have Gulf Breeze take it over. And when Buzz stood up, and Buzz, you're a great salesman. I wish I had your ability, my friend. But you were speaking for the city of Gulf Breeze, and maybe you had not done due diligence. However, you made some terrific promises. And you said something I'll never forget. You said, this is an opportunity. And I believed him. This is an opportunity for the people outside of Gulf Breeze and the community of Gulf Breeze to work together, to have this Tiger Point golf course and help one another out. And we can do this for you. We're willing to do this, that, and everything. We promised you pie in the sky. Well, you know, and he says, this can work. I listened, and it was pie in the sky. I think it was like, I hate to use this example, like Hillary Clinton said, let's push the reset button with UPA and the Tiger Point area. And I think we pushed the reset button, and we see how it worked. Now, there's been a lot of things happen, and I don't know what the solution of this is. I do know as an elected commissioner of a state agency, our state organization, the Midway Fire District, I look at our budget. We have a 10-year plan, and I can look at it and I can tell you, if we look out here in the future 10 years and we see there's a $4 million savings or any kind of a savings in our budget, you know, it makes right now a little bit easier, because we don't have to save money to project out. So, you know, whether those dollars are available or not available, I don't know. I do know the city of Gulf Breeze wanted to have a water department. They got a water department. They wanted to have a South Santa Rosa Utilities. They got the sewer department, South Santa Rosa Utilities. There's a lot of things they wanted to have, and they got them. They wanted to have the golf course. They got them. Well, I'm sorry. It's tough on you. Times are hard. You know, go to the bank. This is my feeling. And maybe they can't. You know, that may be, you know, we all know they've got a fund problem, or not a fund problem. That's not the fair thing to say. They have a bond, able to sell bonds, but at any rate, that's not a problem. That's, they've made some promises, some claims, and I would like for them to hold true, because I want to be a part of Gulf Breeze. It says Gulf Breeze in all the mail that comes to me. I wouldn't mind being a part. I love the golf course, and as far as the golf course, the West Course as it's called, I love to play golf like some people love to ride bikes. I like to walk when I play golf, and the West Course is the only course around you can walk. Now, whether you're still allowed to walk it or they make you take a cart, rent a cart, I don't know. But I'm going to start playing golf again. If the West Course was open, I'd walk. If I could go to Hidden Creek and walk, even though it's a mile, half a mile between some of the holes, you know, I would walk if they let me, because that's what I like to do. But anyway, that's my 2 cents, but I'm very scared and leery when you start talking about having a sit-down with the city of Gulf Breeze.
Thank you, Joe.
You know, so, but at the same time, I'm being very harsh on Buzz Eddy, but I want to let Buzz know, and I say it publicly, I have a lot of respect for the man. I think he's a very good administrator. And Mr. Williams, you said something very important that every public official should know, any elected official, whether they're homeowners or what. And you made the statement earlier, and that statement was, taxpayers deserve to have the facts straight. And I don't think we got them as ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton?
My name's A.J. Sutton. I reside at 1157 Harbor Lane, Gulf Breeze 32563. I appreciate you gentlemen having this meeting today. I think it's very important. We live in an unincorporated area with the city of Gulf Breeze adjacent to us. In my opinion, this meeting today is about accountability. And the accountability has got to be reached between both parties. We have put forth our best effort to assist the city of Gulf Breeze in what we said we would do, and they have pretty well reneged on everything they told us they would do. It doesn't matter whether it's about sea turtles or golf courses or automobile stores or whatever. When somebody promises you something and then they get what they want, it's not right, it's not American for you to come back and say, well, now we've got what we want, you can jump in the ditch and be covered up with whatever. We got people over on the West Course right now in an area, the area that was shut down quite a while back. They're infested with rodents, they're infested with snakes, and it's a very, very bad situation. What we like to think and what we thought we was getting was going to be improvement in our homeowners' ownership. It's declining because of this, and it's going to further deteriorate because they closed the other 9 holes down. People living on that golf course right now, they're devastated. It's nothing but weeds. And right now they're keeping it somewhat cut, but 5 years from now, it'll be a swamp. I mean, it's got so much fertilizer on it, it's going to grow. And what's going to grow out of that ground is not going to be a pretty situation. We're going to have rodents, snakes running around through our entire community. Coyotes, it's going to be a haven for those type things. City of Gulf Breeze promised us that they would do this. And I appreciate the council coming together today and taking a look at what was promised. And hopefully we'll be able to get back to the table with the City of Gulf Breeze and get this corrected. I have put out an email that offered to come back to the table of the City of Gulf Breeze. I have not gotten a response at this point in time, but if they want to talk, we're here to talk. And I was asked to negotiate this thing in the very beginning, and I will stay with it until the end. I appreciate it. And by the way, I'd like for you to tell Commissioner Salter, healthy speed at getting well.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Paul Stagner, 3541 Laguna Court as a resident and 1288 Country Club Road as a business owner. So I'm affected dually as a resident and also as a business owner for this subject. And again, commissioners and board, thank you for the opportunity to come up and be able to speak on this subject matter. I feel like we need to work together and come together, the City of Gulf Breeze and UPA and all the residents in the area, and let's work this out. They did make the commitment of the 15 contingencies they put before the board that were on record, and I think we need to work together to pull these into fruition. Tiger Point Country Club is an economic wheelhouse for our area. It can be what it used to be in 1988 when they played a PGA professional championship in that area. And I feel like if we work together, we probably will never get it back to that shape anytime soon, but I feel like we can reopen the West Course, look at the studies that these consultants are doing. Par threes are very popular around the country now. Maybe if we can open up par three course and reach out to the tourists on the beach and bring those in to help build through a marketing campaign, build the business back for Tiger Point, I think that would be very beneficial. It's hard to go out and ask 350 residents that live on the West Course to come play the beautiful East Course and then go back home and sit on your patio and have a cocktail and look at 4-foot weeds. That's not fair for the residents that live on the surrounding West Course area. So, Buzz, it's been great to work with you. I think we've made some progress on the entryway. I think we need to come together and work both entities to the center, and let's bring back Tiger Point to what it once was. Thank you.
Hi, Mark West, 1106 Laguna Lane, Gulf Breeze, 32563. I apologize, I won't be near as eloquent as some of the previous speakers, especially Mr. Eddy. But seriously, I think that what we've seen over the last few years is just more an issue of just neglect with that property. I understand the economics thing, whatever, that's above my head, but my wife and I, we walk our dog through the West Course, the back nine, through some of the old golf cart paths. And one of the things we're seeing is piles of leaves and brush and debris just kind of accumulate and pop up in different areas. And it's substantial, when the number of like 100 or so, let's say, of these different piles. It almost looks like maybe commercial activity, somebody going back there and just dumping stuff back in the course. There has been some increased cutting, some mowing that we've seen, but I mean, that's really, it's a drop in the bucket compared to all the brush and overgrowth that you have on the periphery and around some of the moats and stuff like that. I worked with Bill and Greta Bremser to draft some language that I think she brought to the city to pursue some federal grant money for clearing up some of those moats. It's my understanding that once upon a time, it's like a channel of ponds that once upon a time actually flowed back into the intercoastal waterway. I mean, I wasn't living there when that all was working that way, so I'm just going on, what I was told. But anyhow, that kind of shows that it doesn't seem like there's any proactive effort from the side of the city. I mean, this is something that Greta, very fiery woman, was pursuing herself. So I just want to reinforce the fact that, and one other thing I should mention is we've had, the other gentleman mentioned the rodent problem, and we've seen that firsthand. I mean, you can't sit in our backyard without seeing a couple rats running along the top of the fence on at any given time. And at one point, they migrated into the home, and we had to get specialists out and, abate that whole problem. So it's a very real, we're feeling a profound impact of the neglect that's going on. So thank you for your time. I just wanted to, bring that to light.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming up. Come on up, Dave.
I'm Dave Crossman. I live at 1171 Sunset Lane, 32563. That's in Santa Rosa Shores. I've seen a lot of things happen around this county in the 25 years I've been down here. You run things very well. Buzz is a good guy. I like him. I've had many talks in his office with him and I. I've seen a lot of things happen. I not look at, but I'm 80 years old, so I've seen a lot of shit happen, to put it in plain words. Let me make a question first. Can any of this property be sold for other uses? Can that be done? That scares me. Question.
Mr. Attorney.
The existing zoning and the existing land use under the comprehensive plan are not residential. It could certainly be sold as a golf course.
Can it be sold to put other housing on it?
I didn't follow that. Could you repeat the question?
Could a portion of the golf course be sold to put housing on?
There'd have to be some land use changes to allow that, but it's possible.
I would strongly be against that, because you don't know what they're going to put in, I heard a sign about selling off the driving range as commercial. Could that happen?
Again, it's not, the land use, existing land use would not allow that to be used as commercial, but
We'd be very strongly against that also. Now let me make a statement. I think that we have to come to some kind of an agreement here on what's going to be done with this. It's equitable to both sides. But I trust Buzz personally, but he has to do other people's biddings. That's what scares me. Let's look out in the future. For one thing I want to say, and I've said it when I was president of UPA, and I think I said it when I was president of Santa Rosa Shores also, when we got into these utility questions. Perhaps what we're not looking at here is economies of scale. I said this at least 10 years ago, maybe 15. We should have one utility on this peninsula, not three. That's savings of economies of scale. I think right now, Buzz Eddy and Gulf Breeze would like to beat the hell out of the utility business. I don't think they like owning it at all. Now, if you had Midway and Navarre and Santa Rosa Shores all put together into one company, you're going to save a lot of labor costs. You're going to be able to buy things cheaper because you're going to buy more of scale. You'll be able to use each other's utilities, facilities. We really got to seriously think about this as something into the future. We got to get rid of 3 utilities on this peninsula. That makes no sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Come on up. Take one more, and then we'll try to wrap things up.
Travis Talley, 1242 Redwood Lane, in Gulf Breeze 32563. Just a few things. I just wanted to point out that the 15 items on the list weren't loosely prepared and rashly agreed to. This was an ongoing negotiation, as A.J. Sutton said, that I think the original list had 23 items, and the final 15 had changes in figures and verbiage to to be acceptable, right, from the city. So I just want to point out that that wasn't, loosely put together. That was negotiated and agreed upon. Then just one statement that Mr. Eddy made about they thought they were taking a break-even, or Meadowbrook had expressed that this was a break-even operation. As it wasn't, when they started, from the consultant's report, they're very comfortable in saying that it should be a profitable operation within a year, with some changes to the organization, management, and payroll structures, the entity, separating it, and so forth. So I just want to point that out. And then I did want to second Mr. West's point about being proactive about the golf course and even just the facilities and the grounds. So as we know, there was 9 operational before. Now they're all gone. But being that I live over there and I have neighbors, and as serving as past president and current acting president for Santa Rosa Shores, I get calls about when are they going to mow. I mean, a simple thing is mowing. And while it's getting done occasionally, I will admit that that is happening most likely because of a call that we've made into the maintenance or the golf course to ask them, hey, this is getting a little bit unruly back here. So I just wanted to point out that I don't know that there is definitely a lack of being proactive. But I appreciate all you guys' work and in trying to come up with a short timeline for this resolution, because dragging this out will make it more difficult for everyone in improving the area. So thank you.
Thank you. Quickly, come on.
Can I say something without having this yet filled out, this piece of paper? Okay. Okay, I'm Connie Repp, and I live at 3448 Hillside Avenue, Gulf Breeze, Florida, 32563. I live right down from the clubhouse on the number 1 tee on the West Course, 26 years, and I love it there. And we could have a great community with the city of Gulf Breeze and our outlining area by having a profitable golfing and boating community. My feeling is I just want to say a couple things, and one of them is, when do you buy a big business that is failing and then expect it to turn around and make profits the very first year or two? You've got to put money out. Anything that we have ever done, you have to put money out in order to make money back. Until they make the golf course beautiful again, and everybody playing, the people that want to drive a cart, or us that live on the West Course, that we want to walk the course, until they do that, they're not going to get people to come out there when they drive by now and they see all the weeds and all the stuff that's going on. They're thinking, even Gulf Breeze in the city are thinking, why should we put our money out right now? All it's doing is losing money. I feel they got to put money out to get money back. The club is wonderful. The food is wonderful. They're making a lot of money with weddings and all that kind of stuff going on. And I just want your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think a couple of things to take away. For me, it's about credibility. It's about commitments that were made, promises that were made, and promises that have been broken. Commitments that certainly have not been carried through at this point. I think we do need to have open lines of communication between the city and the county and the residents on this issue. I wanted to get out in front of this before any further action is taken down there in the Tiger Point area that would harm our residents long term. The closing of the back 9 certainly has been a drag on that area for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 months on those holes. I'm sorry, the front 9. So I think we do need to move forward. This is, Tiger Point is a large, heavily populated area in Santa Rosa County. It's very important to the south end of the county. So I think we do need to be involved. We do need to make sure that the city follows through on its promises. So to that end, I would like our county attorney to prepare the appropriate resolution to initiate the conflict resolution procedures provided by Section 164 of the Florida statutes. And that will set up the ability for the county and the city to hold meetings at the staff level first, and then at the council and commission level, if need be, to try to resolve some of these issues as we move forward. So, Commissioner Cole? Yes, I will. I'm fine. Any questions, comments about that? Anyone? Okay. Then I will move approval of that, moving that to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, that is approved.